Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be back on a Thursday evening doing such a fun virtual event. This is something that I've been really looking forward to ever since I talked to this author's publicist, and I just can't imagine a better way to spend a cozy fall Thursday. I know people might be joining us from not in St. Louis. We've had perfect fall weather today, so that's why I'm mentioning the cozy fall weather. If it's not there like that where you are, I'm sorry. I hope the fall weather is coming soon, if that's what you want. My name is Stephanie. I am the director of events for The Novel Neighbor. We are an independently owned and operated bookstore found in St. Louis, Missouri. So if you are joining us this evening from not St. Louis, please do not worry. We can get this book in your hands. In fact, we can get the author's entire series in your hands. There's multiple of them. We will be covering that. So don't worry, we do ship and we know how to use the mail quite well, in fact, might I add. So the book we are talking about this evening is 2 parts sugar, 1 part murder. I was telling Valerie Burns is our author, that I put this arc in a very special place in my house so that I knew exactly where it was for this evening, and then forgot that very special place. So I'm really proud that I found it and really excited because this has been a well-loved and well-read arc. I'm so excited to talk about the Baker Street Mystery series. But before we get into that, I want to introduce our incredible author so that she can join me as well. Valerie Burns was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana. She graduated from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Political Science and Urban Studies. Valerie later went on to get a Master of Science in Administration from the University of Notre Dame, which I will not hold against her, even though that is a rival school of something that I care about deeply, and a Master of Fine Arts in Writing Popular Fiction from Seton Hall University. Valerie works as an operation manager for a major appliance manufacturer and is a mentor in the Master of Fine Arts program for writing popular fiction at Seton Hall University in Greensburg, PA. Shout out to Pennsylvania, where she earned her Master of Fine Arts. Valerie currently lives in North Georgia with her 2 poodles, Kensington and Chloe, and I'm pretty sure that we can get them to join us at some point this evening. So that's something to look forward to if you are, in fact, a dog person like I am. Valerie, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Do you have Kensington or Chloe nearby? What's their current status? That's what.
And this is Chloe.
Chloe.
She's 2. She's very vocal. I'm just trying to keep her quiet here.
And you know what? If she wants to lend her voice to our conversation this evening, I don't think anyone's going to have any complaints. How are you? What is the weather like in North Georgia? Do you have the cozy fall weather, or is it not quite there yet?
Yeah, no, it was 82 today.
Cute.
So it is starting to get cooler overnight. So overnight we'll get down in the 50s, but then it warms up.
All right. Well, evening coolness is like really what I care about. That's like the cuddle up under a blanket and like read weather anyways. Yeah. I mean, I guess with maybe the exception of like I work a traditional 9 to 5. So like Saturdays and Sundays could be like a little cooler during the day for perfect fall weather. But it still sounds like you're on your way there. That's all that matters.
We will. And you know, I'm good with the warm weather because as you mentioned, I'm from Indiana. So at least I know that I'm not going to get anything below 0. It's not going to get below 0. It rarely gets below 32. So
is that a reason that you moved to North Georgia? Was that
love the weather and but actually my job, you know, I moved for the day job and but I do love the weather.
Yeah. I'm why I did a shout out to Greensburg, Pennsylvania, is that I am a Pennsylvania girl. I grew up in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Hershey, for anyone who might not be familiar with that specific geography. So I'm used to all seasons. I do appreciate St. Louis tends to get a little bit less snow than Pennsylvania, and that's definitely a highlight for me.
Absolutely.
So I hear you on that one. Well, I am so excited this evening. I think where we should start is that if somebody is tuning in, but has not, and maybe they've read some of your other series, they are not familiar with the Baker Street mystery series that you just started with 2 parts sugar, 1 part murder. Let's give them just a quick overview of what this book entails. Can you give Yeah.
Sure. So, the Baker Street Mystery Series is a cozy, culinary cozy. And it features Maddie Montgomery. Madison Montgomery was a fashionista, social media maven who basically lived in LA. Her dad was a Navy admiral, so she's been all over the world, and she's been very self absorbed in her own little world. When her fiance fails to show up for their live stream wedding, then she is humiliated and she just wants to find a rock that she can hide under until some of the, publicity and the attention dies down. And it perfect timing because she learns that she has inherited a house and a bakery and a 250-pound English Mastiff from a great aunt, her great aunt Octavia. And she didn't know her great aunt. She hadn't spent time with her. But it's in a small little town called New Bison, Michigan. And she's never heard of New Bison. So she's like, perfect. I'll go there. I'll hide out. I can sell the bakery. I can, just come back triumphant. And she learns that great aunt Octavia had other plans. So she has put some stipulations in the will. In order to inherit, Maddie has to stay in the house, run the bakery, and keep the dog for 1 year. And the only problem with that is Maddie can't cook. So she has to figure out how to keep this bakery going. But she's up for the challenge, so she gives it a try. And the thing is, with the location of where this New Bison is located, it's really close to Chicago. And there are a lot of people in Chicago who want to snap up property for development in Southwest Michigan. But Maddie can't sell. And about 24 hours after she arrives, she ends up in an argument with the mayor. And then when he's murdered and in the bakery and her fingerprints are all over the murder weapon, she's got to figure out who done it. So that's kind of the premise for what starts off this new culinary cozy series.
And it's such a fun premise. I will say a huge selling point for me as a fellow dog person was that we had a mastiff involved. And clearly that's indicated from the cover. And I was like, let's go. You're giving me culinary, some baking and some dog, and a very fun premise of, unfortunately for her, but the ditch of the altar premise really works for me in books. So this was a complete package for me. And so I was so excited when I read about it and then got the arc subsequently. I do want to ask, so and we'll get into them a little bit later. We'll kind of do a little bit more of a deep dive into what your other mystery series involve. But what inspired you to kind of start a new one? Because I believe that you're still actively writing in some of the other ones, correct?
Correct. I currently have 4 or 5 series, but I'm not writing all of them. I ended the Dog Club series. There's 5 books in my Dog Club mystery series. And so I ended that series. I have an R.J. Franklin mystery series, which is also a culinary series. And there's 3 books out. There's going to be 1 more. And then that series is going to end. And honestly, and just all transparency, I thought my publisher was going to end the Mystery Bookshop series. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's all my series. I'm not going to have anything. So I wrote a proposal for this culinary cozy. And my publisher was like, yeah, no, we don't think so. So I'm like, okay. And then for a while there, they were not sure they were going to continue the Mystery Bookshop series. And so I wrote another proposal and I sent that one out. And in the meantime, my publisher, Kensington, came back and they were like, we changed our mind. We think we do want that new culinary cozy. I'm like, okay, great. I got a series. And in the meantime, like I've already sent out that other one. And I'm like, well, maybe somebody will want that. Now I have 2 series. And then Kensington came back and said, yeah, and we want to do 2 more books in your mystery bookshop series. Okay, that's good. And then I got an offer on the other proposal. So I'll still be writing 3 series. And but it'll be, instead of the Dog Club series, I have the Baker Street Mystery series. As of right now, I've got 2 more books in the Mystery Bookshop series. I'm hoping that they want more after that. We'll see. Depends on sales, they tell me. So hopefully sales will go good. I'm like, I'd like to go through all of World War II, right? So
Yeah.
For those who aren't familiar with that Mystery Bookshop series, the protagonist is writing a British historic cozy. And it starts at the beginning of World War II. So I'm like, I haven't even gotten to the war. So I'm like, let's just get to the war and let's go straight on through to 1945. We can just keep on going that whole route. So hopefully Kensington will agree and I can keep writing. But yeah, and then I have a new series that will come out late next year. And that series is going to be with a different publisher, with Berkeley. So yeah, you heard it here first, right?
I love that. Well, and I really appreciate the transparency. And I know everyone watching will too, because I think there's a lot of, there's a lot about like what you all go through in submitting proposals and working with publishers that is just not general knowledge. And it's so fun to see behind the scenes of what that process looks like, even though I know that like probably 100% of the time it's not fun to be the person going through that process and working that out with everybody. But it's nice to hear on the back end, and especially on the good news. I think that, and I was going to say this for later, but it kind of feels perfect to talk about right now I know as a bookseller, I am definitely experiencing, we've seen 2 big things happen. And that is, 1, a huge rise in romances and a rise in cozy mysteries. And we suspect on our end that it was very much a result of like what we have all collectively gone through in the past 2 years with COVID-19, that if you are sitting down to read something, you want kind of the guarantee of a happy ending and something that's going to be tied up nicely. You might go through like, in a cozy mystery, you might go through a little bit more murder than you might in a romance, but you still know that you're going to be taken care of, that the author has this kind of collective end goal for you when you're reading it. And I think that's why we have seen that become an increasing demand. As somebody who's been writing in that genre for a long time, like what has been your experience on that end? Do you find that to also, like, does that resonate with you, or are there a couple other things going on there?
I agree. I think that we've been through a lot in the past 2 years. And one of the criticisms of, genre fiction has been it's escapist, that I'm like, yeah, I've needed to escape for the past 2 years. I am really thankful for that. So I'm really happy that, when you pick up a romance, there's going to be a happily ever after. When you pick up a cozy mystery, one, that you're not going to see a whole lot of blood and guts and gore or, all of the nasty stuff. Your protagonist, your sleuth, stumbles across a dead body. We're not going to describe what happens, all of the reality of decomposition of a body. And you're not going to hear any of that in the cozy. So I think we needed that. And then the other thing that you get a lot with a cozy mystery is justice prevails in the end. And you also get a glimpse of Kensington, my other poodle, sticking her head up. But, justice prevails in the end. And I think that we need to see that. It may not necessarily be the type of justice that, everybody goes to jail, the bad guy, the killer goes to jail. If that's not the right thing, from us, from our perspective, that may not happen. But I believe when you finish a cozy, you're going to feel that the right thing happened. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that we've needed an escape. We've needed to know that things are going to be tied up. There's not going to be a whole lot of loose ends. Justice prevails, and you know what to expect. And maybe like me, you've watched a lot of Hallmark movies over the past 2 years. So, you get to, you get that in a book form, in a cozy.
We do. We do. No, it's so, they're so great. We were, you summed that up so well too, as the expert on it. We have been getting asked a little bit more lately, like, what exactly defines a cozy versus like something that, because we actually break out cozies at our store of like their own little section versus the mystery thriller section. They're very close together. They're very findable. They're obviously very related. And we've been trying to explain that a little bit more to people of like, what makes this genre this specifically? And you just summed that up so well, as I expect that you would. So I guess let's go back to talking a little bit about our characters, because I really want to spend some time talking about Maddie Montgomery, who is, as you mentioned, when we were talking about the overall synopsis of the book, our heroine and kind of our lead sleuth. And she's got a lot going on. Her premise is a little bit like, and now I'm trying to remember the exact words you used to describe her, but like she's a little self-absorbed, right? But like she's very lovable. You kind of immediately get attached to her. You get swept up into like what's going on with her. So like, where did you originally come up with her? Like, what was the process of creating her as a character?
I'm gonna start with the process of kind of coming up with the concept of the book.
Perfect.
And I think that came out of 2 years of watching TV a lot during the pandemic. And I used to watch a lot of cooking shows. I love Pioneer Woman and Valerie Burns cooking show, and all these cooking shows on the Food Network and the that are just on in Cook, but when during the pandemic, you realize they had professionals taking those pictures and filming. And during the pandemic, you got your brother or your kid taking those pictures. And so there are a lot of hilarious outtakes on, YouTube and Instagram and all over social media that you can watch. And one night I'm like talking to a friend of mine, also an author, Kelly Garrett. And, I'm like, well, I'm trying to come up with a proposal for a new cozy because I don't know if Kensington's going to keep this one going. And I kind of want to do a culinary. And she's like, you should watch these outtakes. They're hilarious. So we did. And I thought, wow, these are great. And so I got the idea of Maddie being someone who can't cook, someone who doesn't know how to cook, but is really good with social media. So she's able to use her social media knowledge to try and help this bakery. So under her great aunt Octavia, the bakery's doing great because her great aunt knew how to cook. She doesn't know how to cook. She's got some people working in the bakery who know how to cook. But what Maddie does know how to do is to use those social media skills to attract people. So she immediately starts snapping pictures and getting that out there and building that social media presence. So I wanted Maddie to be kind of to have a little depth to her. So if you read the book in the first chapter, you might not like Maddie. She might not be very likable, but hopefully by the end of the book, you'll see how she grows and her arc as she, develops. And, her great aunt Octavia tells her, you're spoiled, right? And so I think you need to be around normal people. You need to be around real people. And that's what, life in this small Midwestern town was going to help her to kind of be grounded. And so I wanted all of that in a character. And I also, as we were talking earlier, I get ideas from people I work with, and you know, I will tell you, I told Stephanie, when people make me mad, I kill them. I kill them in my book. That's my therapy. So I have one coworker. He, I think he only reads my books to see if he sees his name. I changed the name. I use his initials, but I changed the name. And so he reads to look for himself. And he's trying to see how many times I can kill him. And he wants a Guinness Book of World Records. So he just deliberately tries to poke at me. So I kill him. But I also take bits and pieces from people I know and like, and they become the characters that live. So I have a nephew and his wife who live in New York City, and they're in the fashion industry. And so in a way, it's parts of them that I can add to my characters. I have, with the Mystery Bookshop series, when I grow up, I want to be like Nana Joe. Okay. But my very first job out of college was working at an area agency on aging. And so
we've worked at one of those too.
Really?
Yeah.
Most people have never heard of them, and they're everywhere. They're in every county in the United States. And I met some amazing senior citizens. My secretary was 85, right? I'm 22, just graduated from college. My secretary was 85. I had a data clerk who was like 65. And I learned how to play the numbers. I learned how to, go to the casino. I learned a whole lot from these seniors. A lot of good stuff too, not just, vice, but there was, I took bits and pieces of them, of the people who mattered and were important to me, and I used them to build my characters. In a way, it's like keeping them close to me is I can recognize that, oh, this person has, Dorothy's smile, or this person has Nettie's, laugh, or this person has Rebecca's, clothing sense, or whatever, pieces that I've taken from them. I know we had Irma is another one of my favorite characters from the Mystery Bookshop series. And we had a receptionist, and she was a heavy smoker, and she had this deep, raspy voice, and she'd be like, "Thank you for calling the area agency on aging." And, I kind of wanted to add a little bit of her and her spunk in the characters. So for Maddie, I pulled a lot of her fashion sense from my, I call my nephew and his wife, and I'm like, hey, so I need a dress that you would recognize that just on site that's, expensive. And my nephew, he's going to ask me like 50 questions. How old is she? Is she educated? What does she do? Blah, blah, blah. His wife is just sort of like, yeah, I would do, I don't even know if I'm saying this, Aaliyah or, whatever. And I'm like, okay. And I looked that dress up. I'm like, oh, $13,000. Okay. Yeah, that'll be perfect. I'll just include that in there. So if anybody's wondering, no, I do not have a $13,000 dress, but I can include that. Research is fun. I don't have Louboutins either, but one day, maybe.
One day, maybe with this series, maybe that's where it goes.
I can aspire to it.
I think that's so funny. So in my previous life, before I was a bookseller, all of my stuff was related to older adults. So everything you just said, like, resonated so well with me. As a college student, there was I worked at the area agency on aging later when I was a master's student, but as a college student, there was oh my gosh, why am I blanking on what it's called? Basically a community center.
Uh-huh.
behind campus. And so I used to walk there, and they were all part of a research project that I was doing on attitudes towards aging and kind of stuff like this. And one of the ways that I would like have conversations is that I grew up in a very big like pinochle playing family. So I would go and we would play cards and we would talk while we were playing cards. And so my graduation gift from them was they took me to my very first casino and horse racing track, and they gave me like a couple dollars to play my first slot machines, and they helped me bet on my first horse, and it's like an amazing memory I have from them.
See, isn't it? I mean, I think a lot of times people have a perception of seniors as being frail, and I wanted to kind of honor the vibrant, active people that I spent a lot of time with and that I saw, and they would tell me stories. I would have to go. I was the planner, so I would go to these senior centers and have meals with them. I'd have lunch, and they would tell me stories. And the big thing was they kept taking the food. Like they wouldn't eat all the food, and they would want to wrap it up and take it home. And I'm like, you can't do that. It's not safe. And they were like, when you've lived through the Depression, you learn not to throw anything away. And I'm like, yeah, but I would have to mark them down because you're taking the food and that's not safe. So at least while I'm here, don't wrap it up and put it in your purse.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, it's really fun to hear of like the ways in which you've incorporated that into the characters. Are there aspects of your own personality aside from our coworker who's trying to make the Guinness Book of World Records? Are there aspects of your character that are involved in anybody, Maddie or otherwise?
You know what? I think there's a lot of me in, there's probably some of me in all of them, especially in their love for dogs, because every character I have is going to love dogs. But I would say probably in Samantha Washington from the Mystery Bookshop series, because her dream was to quit her job and to open a mystery bookshop and to write British historic cozies. That's her dream, because that's my dream. One day I'm going to quit my job, I'm going to open a mystery bookshop, and I'm going to write British historic cozy mysteries.
I love that.
So I think she probably has the most of me from that standpoint. But I think I see myself in a lot of characters. In my dog club series, the character lives in Indiana and she relocates to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she gets a poodle, and she names her poodle Agatha after Agatha Christie, because she's a huge Agatha Christie fan, and I'm a huge Agatha Christie fan. So I see, and she, belongs to a dog club. So her closest friend from college, Dixie, gets her active in the dog club world. And I used to compete in agility and obedience with my poodles when I lived in Indiana and Michigan.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, not these two poodles, but if you've seen the Mystery Bookshop series covers,
yes,
those two dogs are my poodles that I had back then.
Oh my gosh, I love knowing that.
Yeah, my publisher asked if they could use my dogs for the cover, and I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I'd love that. So every time I see those covers, I'm like, oh, Coco and Cash. There's Snickers and Oreo in the book, but yeah, in real life, they were Coco and Cash, and I can tell their personalities just by looking at them. I know which one is which. Oh my gosh.
Does that make Kensington and Chloe a little jealous? Is that what's happening right now? They want their own book cover?
I guess. I'm not sure. She's not ever really done this before, but I think
involved. Yeah, she just wants to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, she's usually just a cuddler, so I'm gonna chance putting Chloe down and hope she doesn't bark the whole time. And then this one, she just wants to be held. So I did name her after my publisher. So her name is Kensington, and I call her Kinsey.
Oh, that's so sweet. They both seem delightful. Okay, this is actually a perfect time to ask this question because we just kind of did an overview of Samantha and kind of like what her goals are and her dreams. One of my questions for you was what would happen if Maddie Montgomery and Samantha met? What do you
Oh,
think would happen?
wow. Good question. I think that Maddie would immediately start taking pictures and posting on social media and probably giving Sam some fashion advice. And I think that Sam would probably be pushing some of the Dawson's baked goods.
I love that idea. I love the team up of Sam pushing that and Maddie being like, sure, I'll post about it and like helping create a whole social media plan for
Yeah.
baked goods. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to reorganize your bookstore because traffic is going to come this way and they're going to want to do this, and we're going to do it like this. So, yeah. That's how I could see them.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about I imagine that in some ways writing your books I imagine that like an event diagram, like sometimes the books have overlap and your writing experiences make sense across like series and they are kind of consistent. But was there anything about writing the Baker Street mystery book and series to come? Is there anything that has been like felt very different from your other series in writing this one?
Um, yeah, think I think you see more of Maddie's development sooner and her growth as a person in book one. In my mystery bookshop series, it starts Samantha Washington is grieving for her husband Leon, who's passed, and I think it takes like 2 or 3 books before she's ready to open herself up to um, anyone or anything. And so I think that you see how Maddie is growing a lot faster, and also um, I think that there's sort of a little subplot that is going to carry throughout. I don't want to give too much away.
Spoilers, yeah.
But there's something that's going to carry throughout at least the first few books in the series. Whereas in the Mystery Bookshop series, they are complete. Each book kind of ends and, all the loose ends are tied up. And I think that, from what I'm hearing from people, they're like, hey, is this going to happen? Are we going to find out? I'm like, yeah, maybe. You're going to have to read book 2 to find out. If for no other reason, people are writing me asking for on Octavia's chocolate cake recipe. And I'm like, well, that will be in book 2. So my plan is to put the chocolate cake recipe in book 2. You hear about it in book 1, but I don't include the recipe in book 1.
But you do give us some recipes. There's not no recipes to be had. We get lemon zucchini bread. We get apple turnovers, perfect for the season.
Yep.
And I know there's and the thumbprint cookies, right? So we get how did these recipes come about? Are they
So I like to bake, unlike Maddie. I do like to bake, and I'm pretty good at it. I love to, try and
yourself. You can say you're great at it.
Nobody will taste them. They'll never know, right? So I like to bake. I enjoy baking. And so those are recipes that, I'm in the pandemic. I'm not going to Panera or my favorite bakery to get apple turnovers. So I'm like, well, how am I going to do this? Sure, in a real bakery, they're going to make their own dough. But, Pillsbury makes something that I can use.
Yeah.
So they can save me a whole lot of time. So The lemon zucchini bread is actually one of my favorites. If you haven't tried it, I never, like, it's not something I grew up. I don't think my mom ever made zucchini. So it's something I wasn't really used to. And I don't know whose bright idea it was to put zucchini in something that's like a bread. And I'm like, but brilliant, because you don't really taste the zucchini. It doesn't taste like a vegetable, but I can use a whole zucchini in the bread. And I'm like, hey, it's more moist.
Yeah.
And lemon just sort of soaks into the bread and it gives it a really nice flavor. And I wish I could be that person who waits until the bread is cool before I pour the glaze on top, so you get the white. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, mine just sort of soaks in, and I'm okay with that because it's pretty darn tasty.
It is. I mean, I know it doesn't always give the same presentation value, but
right. But it's just me and the poodles, so I'm good with eating my lemon zucchini bread without the beautiful white glaze on top. But if you're that kind of person that has that kind of patience and you can wait, then wait, take a picture, and then eat. But it's I think these are just recipes that I made at home. And there was a bakery near my day job that had awesome thumbprint cookies. I mean, I could eat like 2-3 dozen, by myself. And so, when you're not going into the office for 2 years and you really need your thumbprint cookies, then you start to experiment a little bit and you try some different things. So
I love that. Well, and that's one of my favorite things about like anything culinary, especially cozy mysteries. That is for sure a sweet spot, not to make a bad pun, for me over in cozies when you get those kinds of recipes in the back. So I'm very excited. I've not made, our oven broke, so I've not made something yet, but I very much intend to when we replace it. And like the first time that I ever even heard about zucchini bread, I did not grow up with zucchini bread. And I was like, why on earth would you put a vegetable way bread thing? Like, how does that even remotely make sense? And then
I don't know.
It's wild. Yeah. So
I'm like, what would make someone think, oh, I'm going to make bread. Let me get a zucchini out and I'm just going to make bread out of it. I'm like, okay, well.
Brilliance.
I know.
Okay. I definitely want to make sure that we're talking about your writing process a little bit too, of what does your writing process look like? Is Chloe like, excuse me, you're talking, I need snacks? Yeah. Good job, Chloe. You know what?
Thought I was being real subtle with it too.
Oh, you are. I am outing you by accident because of our conversation in the background. I'm just very invested in Chloe and Kensington's personas and the way that they have trained you.
They have trained me. They have.
What is your writing process? Like, do you outline? Do you kind of always know like how the ending is going to be? Or are you kind of like sitting down and writing and like finding out things as they come out?
So I am not a plotter. I wish I were a plotter. Maybe one day when I grow up, I can be a plotter, but I've tried. And it really, for me, it just sucked the joy out of writing because I knew what was going to happen. So I prefer to just write. So I get an idea. I know who my characters are. I know how I want the story to start. And I have a general sense of what happens.
Okay.
And I usually know who my victim is, who I'm going to kill. And but the surprise is often the killer. So I will start out with somebody in mind, and my publisher would prefer if I were a plotter. My editor he wants like a detailed synopsis, and the longer the better. And we've been working together for years now, since like 2015, I think. And I think he's learned that I'm going to give you like a long synopsis of what happens, but I'm going to gloss over the details. So the stuff that I know I want to happen, I'll, put it in the synopsis. And then I might spend 2 pages talking about a sunset, or isn't her dress lovely? It had sequins and it did, it burst into flames when she turned around, whatever, that is. And then Maddie stumbles over the body. And then Maddie starts detecting. And then, she starts baking. And the smell and the aroma of the apples fill the, so I will spend a long time describing things. And in it, he gets a basic sense of what's going to happen in this book. The killer almost always changes. I try to keep him informed if I'm going to make major changes, because in my first dog club mystery, I did not. I totally changed that book from what he had originally asked for. And he read it and he's like, what is this? I don't recognize any of these people. What is this? And, I freaked out because I was really new to publishing, and he's like, you can't just change it. I didn't realize. So publishing is very, very slow. For anybody who doesn't know, it is oh, okay, she just jumped out of the chair. It is a long, slow process. It takes anywhere from a year to 18 months to get a book from the time you finish to the time it's at a bookstore. And so, but once your editor approves the basic plan, then people start getting busy. You got the art department starts working, and the sales department and marketing, and everybody's working. And now I've changed the book, and none of the stuff they had come up with worked anymore. And so I get why he was upset. But, and I'm like, I remember I was at a conference in New Orleans, and I'm walking through the hotel, and I'm like, I'll change whatever needs to be changed. Just give me a few weeks and I can rewrite it. And he's like, no, don't worry about it. I'm approving it, but you got to keep me informed. So I keep him informed.
Look how you both trained each other.
We are trainable.
I love finding out that you don't always be the killer, because I think that is something that is like, that's just fun. Like, in that I have found that often when we talk to an author and they're like, I did not know, obviously there's always exceptions to everything, but whatever the author didn't know was going to happen tends to be one of my most shocking moments as well. Or like something that I was like, oh, and I think that it just works so well of like when you don't know that also translates to the reader, and like you've kind of given us enough that it always makes sense, but you're still like, oh my gosh, all right, here we are.
I just love, discovering. I spend a lot of time getting to know my characters. So I know how they're going to respond in different situations, but then I put them in this situation and I'm typing away and things happen. And especially in the mystery bookshop series, because you get the British historic cozy mystery that Sam's writing, and she's just typing along and she'll write like, man, I wonder how I get out of this. That's because I'm wondering how I'm going to get out of this, because I find myself, I'm like, ooh, didn't see that coming. I don't know where that came from, but I guess that's what the characters wanted, and that's the direction that the story kind of moved, and it's very organic, and it's surprising, and that's what is exciting to me. And I hope it's exciting to the readers, because I'm as shocked and surprised as you are when certain twists happen in the book, because I'm like, ooh, okay, well, good to know. Let's keep going. Let's see how we get out of this one. And so I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about writing. And the other thing I love to do, I love to put what my friend calls Easter eggs. I love to just put little things, and like New Bison, Michigan. So anybody familiar with Michigan will know that there is a town called New Buffalo. And so I'm getting emails like, "Hey, is that New Buffalo, Michigan?" Yep. Is the Four Feathers Casino the Four Winds? Yep, it sure is. And sometimes I just giggle to myself as I'm typing along, or there's a character in the Two-Part Sugar, One-Part Murder called Garrett Kelly, and there's one of my friends who's an author is Kelly Garrett. And so I just, I'll just think, oh, this is hilarious. I just crack myself up while I'm writing, and hopefully readers will get my sense of humor or think it's enjoyable, or maybe it's something that'll make you wonder, so.
Yeah, that's so fun. I think it does work. As somebody, I can only speak for myself. I'm sure other people can weigh in, but I think it works. And we get the Easter eggs, which is great. One final question before we do our this or that segment that I warned you about, the scary hot seat segment. What is, I imagine that you have to research a lot of different ways to kill people. Even though it's not gory or particularly bloody, you still have to kill somebody off. So what is the best rabbit hole you've gone down figuring out how to kill somebody?
Ooh, that's rabbit hole. So I think probably poison. You could spend a whole lot of time looking up poison. One of my professors at Seton Hill used to say, if you're not on some TSA watch list for your browser history, then you're not really a serious writer. So I'm sure that my browser history would scare a lot of people. I actually just got back from a conference on Sunday, and I met a woman called the Poison Lady. And she is a toxicologist, and she did this presentation on arsenic. So I am amazed now at arsenic. It's everywhere. I did not realize that arsenic is everywhere. It's in the ground, it's in our water, it's a mineral. I did not know that arsenic can be mailed through the US Postal Service because it's a mineral. So if you were to take a soil sample and send that through the mail, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's arsenic in our soil, and we can't take it out. There's
Cute.
nothing you can do. So I spend a whole lot of time on poison.
Wow, how fun for you. That's a good time, Oh my gosh. Okay, well, if anyone has watched before, you know that one of our favorite things to do, our little round of this or that. Very intense, as you all know, extremely scary. We've themed this evening, again, I'm very into cozy autumn, which is also cozy mysteries are meant to be read all year round, but I feel like I really go through them in the fall and winter months because they just feel so perfect for the season. So I themed all of that to this. So the first question is very, very easy, and maybe your answer might be neither of these things, but okay. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
So easy. Do you have a particular, are you a pumpkin spice latte person? Do you go that deep into fall or no?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm a coffee with equal and cream.
Okay.
I'm going to eat my calories. I'm not going to drink them. So I'm going to go, my sister's like, why are you doing your artificial sweetener? You need to just, I'm like, yeah, I would rather have the cookie to go with that. I can
cookie to go with my coffee.
Exactly. So I'm going with the artificial sweetener in my coffee and a cookie.
That's perfect. Listen, my favorite thing, I'm a big coffee person too. We align on this. I'll drink tea, but it's not my go-to. My favorite thing is sitting on my porch on a colder fall morning, drinking coffee, watching our dogs hang out in the yard, reading a book. It's perfect.
Yep, it is.
Okay, pumpkin pie or apple pie?
Apple.
Really?
Yeah. Don't like pumpkin.
At all? So you drink pumpkin flavored nothing. Wow.
Nope.
I'm sure there's more people in America that also fall that way. But
Lost all respect for me now, haven't you?
you know what? Just a tiny bit. Honestly, I'm thinking about do you have Trader Joe's in Northern Georgia?
Yeah, we just got one.
Okay. I was just thinking about, so they recently, we have a bunch of grocery stores. Trader Joe's is not the only grocery store that I shop at. However, they do a lot of seasonal products. And so I was just thinking about how all of their seasonal products are pumpkin. And so you'd probably walk in and see their seasonal display and be like, that's disgusting. And I would walk in and be like, wow, dreamland, incredible. And just like throwing everything that I possibly could. So that's really what's going on in my brain. And that's, you know what? That's fine. An apple pie is delicious. Do
Love
not
apple.
get me wrong. You just ditched pumpkin pie so fast. I was alarmed. Okay. Are you sitting around a fire pit, like doing s'mores or like hanging out with friends, or are you more of like snuggling by your fireplace, doing whatever, reading, hanging out with friends, etc.?
Snuggling by the fireplace.
Yeah, we align on that. That's
not really an outdoorsy kind of girl.
Me neither. There's bugs out there. There's bugs. And listen, also, funny you say there's bugs. Our book club recently read this. It was a phenomenal book. Daisy Hernandez. She wrote this book called The Kissing Bug, which is like part memoir, part science. And it's an incredible book because it is really eye-opening about infectious diseases. Like the whole thing is around a kissing bug, which is a bug that will bite you and create a welt. So like, no, thank you, in general. But like, then if you get bit by a bug who has a parasite in it, the parasite can like hide itself in your body and balloon your heart and or other organs and cause like all of these issues. Sometimes people are fine. And then sometimes it's like found because there's like, why does this person have like wild heart conditions? However, it is not something that is super prominent in the United States based off of like a couple of different factors. Like it's kind of prominent in California and Texas for geographic like factors and kind of like, especially if it's in like kind of a rural area or somewhere that has been like recently, like a lot of land has been cleared. But it's also prominent there because of higher immigrant populations. And the whole book was discussing how like this is a disease that impacts a huge population, but it is not something that's focused on the United States. And like kind of in the same way that like sometimes like malaria is huge, but we don't really even address that as like so it was fascinating. The author wrote the book as a way of dealing with grief over like her aunt died from this disease, but the author is also came out to her family, and her aunt was kind of the person that didn't accept her. And so in writing the book, it was her way of grieving her aunt because they had been kind of had this relationship and then it was strained and then she passed away from the disease. All of that to say, it really makes you freaked out about bugs after you've recently read it, and any bite that you get, wild. So fully agree with you. I'm not an outdoor person. And I probably made you even more of not an outdoor person now that I've told you about the kissing bug.
Pretty much.
Don't worry. Northern Georgia was not like a hot spot mentioned in the book. So I'm sure
Good to know.
You're fine. Nor was Indiana or Michigan. So I think all of your major places have been covered. Okay. Well, I'm very curious to see. This is getting into a little bit harder of a question potentially. Vampires or witches?
Ooh. I think I'm gonna go with witches.
Okay. Do you have a reason behind that?
Nope. I just was thinking, do I really want to live forever? You know, I don't think so.
You're like, I would prefer actually to not be immortal. Thank you so much. I'll just have some cool powers while I'm here. How's that?
Right. Exactly.
That's a big debate at the bookstore. I would say that is one of the, I always run this or that questions past our staff, like just to see what everyone would answer. And there was a very divided front on whether you'd go vampire or witches. So I'll take your answer back to the final question. I think this is going to be the hardest question I ever ask you. I
Okay.
told you there'd be no hot seat questions, and then I lied. Poodles or poodles?
That's a hard one. Let me see. Poodles.
Have you ever owned a different kind of dog?
No. So when I was little and my sister and I wanted a dog, my mom had stipulations. We could have a dog, but they can't shed.
Mm-hmm.
And so poodles have hair, not fur.
Mm-hmm.
They're also very smart and hyperallergenic coats. So a lot of people that have allergies to dogs can tolerate poodles. So and they're very, very smart, which is why you used to see them in circuses because they're easy to train. The problem with that is that sometimes it takes me a minute to realize I'm being played. So they can be really, really smart. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why am I giving you 5 treats? So she's like, oh, she's caught on. And then she just sort of move on.
And then she moves on. I love that. I love your deep love for poodles. I love that in general, even if it's not a poodle, as is the
I do
case,
love dogs.
2 parts sugar, 1 part murder, that dogs are always involved because that is absolutely my favorite thing. And honestly, my only critique of cozy mysteries is that I feel that a lot of people who write cozy mysteries are cat people, and
Yeah.
dogs are underrepresented in the genre. So
I agree.
I said it. Everyone heard it here. We need more dogs. So I'm very excited that it appears that we will be getting more in all of your series, but especially in this one. So, all right. We have unfortunately come to the end of our evening. This was so incredibly fun. Like I mentioned, if you are tuning in from somewhere if you are in St. Louis, you can come this weekend and you can grab a copy. If you are not in St. Louis, we would be more than happy to send you a copy, not only of the book, but Valerie was kind enough to sign book plates for us. So you will find that inside of any book purchase you make from us online. So kind of a little extra treat to look forward to there. Valerie, do you want to say anything before we log off for the evening?
No, I just hope people will give Maddie and Baby, the English Mastiff, a read. And if you like them, then, leave a review. If you don't like them, leave a review. And hopefully, you'll just enjoy the series and try the lemon zucchini bread if you get a chance.
Yes, I know. I want people to make the lemon zucchini bread and tag us in it and show us all of the fun things that they're.
Yeah, take a picture with the book and your lemon zucchini bread and let me know what you think.
Yeah, no, this is, again, thank you so much for bringing this series into our lives. Thank you for bringing all of your series around, but very excited. I know one of the best things when authors start a new series is that someone will always inevitably come up to us and be like, I've been wanting to get into it. But sometimes when there's multiple books, they're like, gosh, that's either it's great for some people because they're like, great, I know if I get into it and I like it, that there's more to come. And that's comforting. And sometimes people are like, I just don't know which one I'm going to start with. And so I love when there's a new series out because it can be like, don't worry, you'll eventually go back and read all of those, but here's what you're going to start with. And here we are. So I'm very excited to press this into everybody's hands for the next fall and winter season. So very excited about that. Thank you so much for writing them.
Thank you. I appreciate booksellers and librarians and readers of cozy mysteries.
Cozy mystery fans unite. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody who's tuning in, whether you're tuning in with us live or if you're watching this later. We hope you've had a great time. And if you, come in, buy the book. That's all I have to say. I'm going to say it 3 more times because that's what, that's how much love we have for it. So, all right. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your evening.
Bye.